Hi, welcome to week one of the course. I'm just going to chat with you a little bit first about the overview of the course or this week's materials and what to expect. And then I'm going to give a brief lecture, just kind of pulling out some of the highlights of the reading so that you can really take a look at those. And I'm also going to discuss the difference between media, a medium, and what some people call the media. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with flipping to another slide that shows just sort of the overview for the week. All right, so this week we have kind of a busy week of just getting things in order. And the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you sign up for your impassioned defense. I'm going to make another video that kind of goes over that. There are some written instructions. So check out the video and the instructions, but do sign up by the end of the week. Make sure to do your welcome introduction so that we all get to know a little bit about you. And then touch base with your theorist grid group. There is also a video forthcoming about the theorist grid and how you can expect to work together and why we're doing it that way. Then you've got 2 readings and 2 discussions. So for each discussion, make sure to create your own original 250 word post and then respond to each of the other posts. And with that, I want to dig into something that's pretty important to understand. I want everyone to be mindful of this throughout the course. Often you'll hear people talk about the media, and yet the media is a plural term. So there isn't a singular monolithic media. We have mediums and we have multiple media, but there isn't actually one entity that is all the same that could be the media. So I'm asking that everyone be really mindful and try to just erase that from your writing, from your vocabulary. It takes a little while to get used to, but within media theory and media studies and communication studies, it's really important that you understand the nuance of that. So just to go through what's here, a medium is singular, print is a medium, television is a medium, radio is a medium, written letters are a medium, and then each of these mediums is unique, and just like the organizations that are creating them are unique. So there just isn't singularity across those. And then the media are plural. So one organization might use multiple types of media. You probably use multiple types of media. I'm sure you do. So often we'll say the media is powerful, or the media are powerful, or the media misconstrues the news, or the media exaggerate, the media got it wrong. But it's not the media, it's one specific medium, it's one specific organization, it's one type of communication, technological communication generally. So really think about that, the fact that, we've got different media outlets with different politics and different economic interests, and what they choose to do is different from outlet to outlet. And then mediated communication is communication that's supported by or experienced through information communication technology. So this is in contrast to interpersonal communication. And most of what we're going to be discussing, or all of what we'll discuss in the course, is mediated or mass communication. So the difference between one medium reaching many people, so one-to-many communication, versus one individual to one individual, or interpersonal communication. And then it could be argued social media is more of a many to many, where many people, it's not just one organization sending a message, but many people interacting back and forth. There is one of the discussions this week is to create and share your expression understanding of mass communication. And I really want you to take a look at the Peters article and think about the history of mediated communication. So not just in the modern era, but what was mediated communication prior to TV and radio even? The town crier. So any place where one entity, at least one entity, could communicate with many is a type of mass communication. So pay attention to that article, and hopefully it'll be of use to you in that assignment. Okay, generally, how to approach the reading. So we are doing theory. Theory can feel a little dense. It's a little bit different style of reading and writing. So here are just a few tips. Don't try to understand every word. Look for themes and ideas. Look for indicators of worldview, point of view, and ideological and philosophical underpinnings. So theories coming from a very unique and nuanced, situated context. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It's just looking at those things to understand the place from which that theory was developed. Look up unfamiliar words. There are probably going to be a few. And then just be open to older works, different writing styles. It can sometimes feel a little frustrating, the different type of writing. It's very different than blog or newspaper style writing, or even some textbook writing. It's a little bit different. So just stick with it. And, make time to think. I talked about this in my introduction video. You're going to read and grapple with these thoughts and ideas. And part of the learning can just be sitting down with a cup of coffee and thinking, mulling it over. And that will probably be really helpful in your final project as well. And then reflect on what resonates with you and what doesn't. And just think about, why is it that some things resonate with you and others don't? Okay, moving on. Why media theory? So media is trying to tell us something about ourselves and our world, or the theory is trying to make sense of these interactions. And everything is just coming from a unique perspective. So it's not, like I said, that one is right or one is wrong, but just look for those golden nuggets, the something that rings true to you, that you believe accurately describes the world. Ultimately, this kind of work endeavors to help us become better citizens of our world and more engaged in a meaningful and awake way, where we think about that relationship with media. So, challenges in media theory. We're going to look at a lot of theories, and these are just some of the challenges that make media theory different than, say, biological theory or a hard science theory. This is social science, so it's different. We're looking at human behavior. So it's difficult to apply the scientific method and create conditions where the exact same behavior is always able to be replicated. Causality is not easily proven. You could change one variable in an experiment or in a test, but because we're studying humans, there may be many variables that have changed or over which we have no control. So it's just more difficult to measure and explain human behavior because we're complex. Also, the effects of testing or the exposure of a particular media or a particular medium or experiment on humans is slow. So we're not going to expose a group of individuals in a test to a certain type of TV, let's say violent video games, and expect that the effect of violent video games would be felt in 1 hour or 1 day. It may take a long time to see those effects. So that's also a challenge. And then generally human beings think, we feel, we have goals, we're self-reflexive, and that impacts the experience and the ability to understand and measure the relationship between humans and media. All right, so some of you might be wondering, why do we need someone else to help us understand our relationship to media? I use it every day, from morning to night, sometimes from the time we wake up in the morning in bed to the time we go to bed. And Baran and Davis capture this on page 12, and they say, why do we need someone to tell us about ourselves or explain why we do the things we do? some of the questions that the theorists are looking at and posing might seem confusing. They're a little challenging, but they're definitely worth it. So I want you to pay attention to media effects theory. It's mentioned briefly in chapter 1 of Baran and Davis. Generally, human beings believe that we are less affected by media than our peers or by anyone else around us. So when we read a theory, we do believe that it applies to others, but we don't take that so readily upon ourselves as actually something we experience. So the theorists and researchers and academics and all of you in class are able to help yourselves and others around you see the impact of a particular mediated experience in a way that an individual may not be able to experience it themselves. So right before I jump on to defining theory a little bit, I want to mention that I did post a couple of articles in resources, and they're about how to read academic text. So if you are struggling with breaking it down, or just the amount of time you feel like you're spending, take a look at them and use those as some tips and pointers for how to do it. I know my advisor shared that with me in person, not the articles, but shared with me how to break down an academic text and read it more efficiently. And it really, really helped. So do take a look at those articles. All right, defining theory. So Baran and Davis say that they're not really going to give a clear, specific definition of theory is in an attempt not to pigeonhole it into something overly defined. But some quotes from the chapter that I think are helpful are, theories are stories about how and why events occur. Scientific theories begin with the assumption that the universe, including the social universe, are created by acting human beings, reveal certain basic and fundamental properties and processes that explain the ebb and flow of events in specific processes. Additionally, on page 12, they state that theory is not objective. Different schools of thought will define theory in different ways, depending on the needs of the theories and on beliefs about the social world and the nature of knowledge. So we're going to jump into that a little bit more. Theory is situated in time and place. It's contextual. It's occurring within a historical moment that's impacted by all the politics and society, political events, economic events that are happening around theorists, and as well as what are the communication technologies that exist. So these theories are imbued with meaning based on both human need and experience. So we'll be studying a lot of theories, and I will ask you to pay attention to contextual factors that'll help you understand each theory's role, impact, import, strengths, and weaknesses. So the 4 basic categories of media theory as laid out by Baran and Davis are postpositivist theory, which is a more empirical observation guided by scientific methods. So these are theories that attempt to approach media theory, understanding media in a way most closely related to scientific theory. The hermeneutic theory or theories are the study of understanding, especially by interpreting an action or text. And in these theories, many things can be seen as a text, a conversation, a place, a space, an interaction. So not solely the written word, but many things become texts. The last 2, critical theory and normative theory, are much more like charged politically and in terms of understanding or the impact of values. So critical theory seeks emancipation and change in a dominant social order. We'll include cultural and political economy theories and spend extra time on this subset, but they're really looking at dominant social order within a particular cultural and social order. So that might be different in the United States than it is in France or Western Europe or Southeast Asia. So dominant social order changes depending on where you are. But in general, they're seeking change for people who do not have as much power within a system. And then normative theory really looks at how a media system should operate in order to conform to or realize a set of ideal social values. So again, this is associated with a specific socio-cultural context. But for example, we would look at an ideal media system in a Judeo-Christian or Christian dominated society differently than we would try to understand one in an Islamic dominated society. Those are just two examples. They're religious, cultural examples, but just to give you something to hopefully better understand what that means. So the distinguishing factors of the theories that hopefully you can identify are what is the ontology behind the theory. So what do the theorists or the theorists believe the nature of reality, and then what is knowledge? Like, how do they approach that? What can you understand about that through the theory, or how does that impact the theory? Epistemology is how knowledge is created or expanded. So this is again going to vary by theorist and place in time and in the world and history. And then axiology, the theorists' belief around the role of values in research and theory building. So critical theory, normative theories really place a higher value on imbuing values in theory and in society, whereas the post-positivist theory, those theorists even try to leave their values out of the theory and really understand what is happening in the social world, irrespective of how they feel about it. At least that's what the attempt is. So on kind of one end of a spectrum, you could look at some theorists on the post-positivist end trying to be more as a scientist versus on the other end, humanists who are really looking at it through a human social lens. Finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, as Peters mentions, the evolution of mass communication theory over time. This is one slide, just kind of gives some examples of different types of technological communication. And we'll be exploring how theory helps us to understand each of these mediums in time and space. And finally, this course illustrates the ways in which humans and the media interact. It's a willing interaction. We're not simply subjected to media, rather we interact with, we consume, we produce media in a willing way. So there's this two-way environment where media are created and experienced by individuals and organizations are creating and responding to our responses. So it's this back and forth all the time. And that's it for this week. I hope you're going to enjoy the readings, and I look forward to seeing what you start producing this week. Thanks.